So am I audible, Shilpa?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay.
Very good afternoon to one and all. With the blessings of His Holiness Siddharama Mahaswamiji and Dr. Allamaprabhu Mahaswamiji, I, Ms. Shilpa Mayannavar, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, S.G. Balekundri Institute of Technology, Belagavi, welcome you all for today's live webinar on Trends in Neural Computing as a Web Service by Dr. Uday Wali, sir. I request Dr. Jayashree Rudgi ma'am, Head of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, SGBIT, Belgavi, to welcome the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Jayashree Rudgi, the professor and the head of the Electronics and the Communication Department. Feels privileged to welcome the today's speaker and all the online participants. Okay. So first, I consider it a great honor to welcome Dr. Uday Wali sir. He is a very expert, he is a CEO of a Sequad Computers and a faculty of Electronics and Communication Department, SGBIT. And sir has a very vast knowledge of the CAD tools, neural network, etc. Okay. Hope all the participants will make use of this platform very effectively. At the end of the session, there is a question and answer session. If you have any doubts, you can get it clarified. As the SGBIT, it's a SG Balekundri Institute of Technology, Belgavi, Karnataka, is conducting a series of webinars for the students as well as the faculties. Okay. So for the students, totally the 7 webinars have been conducted, and this webinar is only for the circuit branch faculty and those who are interested to take up the research work in a neural network or the neural computing. So with this, once again, I welcome Wali sir and all the participants, those who are registered from the all over India. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Before proceeding to the session, I take the pleasure to introduce the resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Uday Wali sir. Sir has completed Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from BBB College of Engineering and Technology, Hubballi, in the year 1980. Sir stood first rank to the university and directly got admission to PhD at IIT Kharagpur. Sir's research was on computer-aided design of switched capacitor networks. Sir completed his PhD in the year of 1986. Sir has more than 15 years of teaching, industry, as well as research experience. Sir has worked as a principal professor in KLE CT Belagavi. Sir has taught almost all the subjects of circuit branches. Sir started his own software company named Sequad Computers in the year 1996. It was originally located in Chennamanagar, Belagavi, and recently it has been shifted to Desur IT Park, Khanapur Road. Computers, they develop ERP softwares for sugar industries, for electrical billing, software for PGCT counseling, software for VTO LIC administration, and many more in the list. Sir has worked with MSD for 5 years, that is Military Survey, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Sir has also worked for 1 year with Sun Microsystems, California, USA. Sir has worked for 5 years with Rolta, Mumbai. He was involved in different projects, including Vikram Sarabhai, Tumba, Gujarat Electronics and Communications Limited, Baroda, Engineers India Limited, Delhi, and many more. Sir is also involved in research activities under the banner of Sequad Research, Belagavi. Under Sir's guidance, 4 students have completed their PhD. 4 students are currently pursuing PhD, and myself, under Sir's guidance, have recently submitted my PhD thesis. In Sequad Research, we work on different areas like microelectronics and mechanical systems, ANN for robotic path planning, OFDM systems for wireless communication, neural processing accelerators for image recognition, RF channel predictive analytics, machine learning and AI for biomedical image processing, and many more. One of the project which was based on my PhD work has received about 2 lakhs of grant from VTU, and another project again under SIR's guidance which is related to biomedical image processing has received about 2 crores of funding from Canary Mud. We are very fortunate that Sir is currently working as a professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering, SGBIT, Belagavi. With this brief introduction, I hand over the mic to Dr. Uday Wali, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Shilpa, for the introduction. I'll just briefly list what we are going to cover today. We'll have a look at evolution of neural computing and why do we need neural computing as a web service. You will also see how modern AI-based application development happens in colleges and even in the industry, and how the current trends in hardware are supporting implementation of AI-based systems. We'll also see what is the possibility of research in this and what are the business opportunities, how the businesses will grow, and things like that. Actually, I started looking at this topic. It is a kind of active area. We have been working in this AI field for several years now. But the kind of dramatic changes that are happening are really astounding. And just to take a example, we'll have a look at this sample. Yesterday's headlines, some headlines, I just picked some of them. There are many other headlines, but these were related to AI. How can we use AI in fight against COVID-19? IT Ministry is asking this question to industry. The other title was AI will be the key for contactless solutions across the industries. So this is again COVID-related AI solutions for industries. Another one again related to the same two things, COVID-19 and AI. A company called Wobot launches AI-based hygiene tracking solution. And another company announced a new AI tool to predict COVID-19 without testing. So what we see here is how COVID is pushing AI to its kind of a boundary. Everybody wants to use AI. Everybody, and it is feasible. It has kind of matured to that level where we can effectively start using AI for some today's problems. Another sample I just take is how probably our BE students or MTech students will be implementing their projects in the coming year, next year, or something like that. Probably these are something which I just googled up and then see what are the new kind of possibilities and for doing projects. Actually, we have started working on some project. I shall probably tell you after some time. Build your first NLP system. NLP is natural language processing system with 10 lines of Python code. This is a kind of a Google searched result about a new project idea. Doesn't it sound very interesting? You have NLP has been researched for last 50 years, I guess, and then now we say, yeah, you just write 10 lines of code and then you have an NLP system. These NLP systems are capable of understanding audio spoken words, phrases in virtually hundreds of languages and then convert the theme to any other language. And you really don't need much of a coding. All the libraries are available, and you can write just a few lines of code and you get your audio system working. The another one is easy to build biometric system with the facial recognition. Facial recognition. How many of us have tried the facial recognition for so many years, and suddenly we see that that technology exists, and then it is very much possible for industry startups to build biometric systems based on the current level of technology. Actually, this particular project uses only one processor, which is costing just about 7,000, 8,000 rupees in the market. Then there is another one which is on the similar lines, which is build an obstacle-avoiding auto-driving toy car capable of real-time object recognition with just one processor. We will discuss what is that processor. You may be just jumping. What is that? It is able to avoid obstacles. It is auto-driving, and it is able to get real-time objects. And so, if you put an obstacle as it is driving, then it should be able to avoid that. And that is a toy car. So you can, what is the connection to the neural network in all these? Is basically the modern AI is largely based on a concept of artificial neural networks. I think most of us are already aware of it. Modern AI basically has two distinct components which you can easily identify. So we easily separate that. You generally refer to that machine learning and AI. And AI basically consists of all the inference engines that use either statistical models, logic models, or neural networks. These networks are used in multiple layers, and we'll see examples again at some in a later slide. And to do this work, now people of our age, we are used to writing lot of code. Now it is not necessary to write that kind of a code. The development of language tools like Python, allowed integration of code that is developed in other languages and merge them into a single language and support large-sized projects and their management. Very interesting frameworks for this. Again, they're old. They're not really very new. They're fairly old in computer technology terms. Earlier products, there is a product called Cafe, and there is another one called Piano. These were older products. Both are not really very much in use these days. But the other two, the TensorFlow, which is promoted by Google, and PyTorch, promoted by Facebook, are very much in use, and we can build. There are other companies like AWS, Amazon is there, and they also have their own framework, things like that. Many large companies, Microsoft has Azure. All large companies are trying to get their piece of the pie. There is a very interesting development in this. What happens is, if we start developing applications for specific frameworks, are we getting tied down to that particular? We'll obviously get tied down. What is the way out? If I develop something in Piano, for example, I cannot move my model directly to TensorFlow, or I cannot move it to PyTorch. So how do we overcome this? Each one of them is giving me services as as a library. There is a library available to which will provide me interfaces to, say, TensorFlow or to PyTorch or to Piano and all that. So, keeping this in mind, actually, there are in 2015, just 5 years ago, a team of AI industrialists, including Elon Musk from Tesla. They started an initiative called OpenAI Initiative. Initially, it was they thought, okay, AI will become powerful and should be made available to everybody. If it remains in hands of others, it can be a problem. So they started an initiative called the AI Initiative. Somebody is talking. Can you mute, please?
I request all the participants to be on mute, please.
Yeah. A large part of this open AI is based on a product called the Transformer, which was originally developed by Google, and a product derived from that called GPT-2, Generative Predictive Transformer version 2. Is available as a part of OpenAI initiative. The SpreadNet is not part of AI. This is wrong here. Okay, SpreadNet is actually PyTorch. So we have these pre-trained networks available, and then they can do particular work. I think we can. There is a particular site. I'll just go to. So, so what happens is now building a AI application really doesn't really take much of a coding effort. What you need to do is you need to just study the domain, what you want to do, and then collect lot of data, and then identify classes in the data, clean the data, and map that data to a existing ANN library. Once that mapping is done, you need to train. So a lot of time goes in the training. Dr. Bahubali, can you please mute it, please?
Hello.
Hello? So we'll train the network using supervised learning, and because the data has already been classified, when you input it to a network, and you should be able to get trained the network, and using that the same part or the additional real-time data, you can test the trained network. So a lot of training, a lot of building, application building actually is about training the network rather than actually building the network. So it is it is not a very difficult, or it has not remained a technical task. So anybody with an interest to teach a network can teach a network and build a very personalized neural network or a AI application. Okay. The problem is that ANN has to be large. If you have to address the current level of QoS, that is the quality of service, then I think that we need a very, very large neural networks, and those are available only at certain data centers. They are not easy to install, maintain, and they are very huge configurations with millions of nodes in them, and we'll see some of the examples of that. So it is possible to run some kind of initial ANN on a laptop or a PC, but if you can do that, this either your data is too small or your network is too small. You need some better network. Either it is a very domain-specific, simple neural network, or you are using a library that is running on the background. In the background, if you're using a library, then the library is invoking a particular instance in the background and running from the data center servers. Okay, so we come to the real part now. That what is happening is with AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. So, though we have achieved certain kind of goals in general intelligence in AI, many people, including some of the best brains in artificial intelligence, including Joshua Bengio and Lacan and people like that, they think they are all with Facebook. They think artificial intelligence cannot exist. It will be automatically controlled. But then that view is contested by other people who are part of the AI, OpenAI initiative. And what Elon Musk says is, we have 10 to 100 times faster implementation than what Facebook has. And what we are seeing is too dangerous to share with everybody. So OpenAI started with the idea of sharing all the AI development with people. It is still you can still get it on GitHub, but OpenAI thinks it is too dangerous to share the complete code. So they provide you hooks, they provide you web services to use their network. OpenAI is abstracted. It is available, implemented on Azure, and the technology is given by Google. We also have certain Indian teams in OpenAI initiative, largely Infosys and another venture capital fund called Khosla Ventures. So this is a kind of a output from a project in OpenAI. So this part, the highlighted part was entered by me. Input to the system, input to the OpenAI system for the transformers, and it generated everything else. So I just said the sun pushed the first ray through the branches and leaves early in the morning. So it completes that what I have written. It tries to generate, it synthesizes the text, and see the quality of that text. So it says it pushed the ray to the ground, where I could observe it looking upon the whole region of the heavens. I was about 6 feet above it, and as I was unobstructed view with a cup of tea, the light from its rays warmed and refreshed my sight as well as my weary limbs. The desolation of the land seemed as bright and pleasant to my eyes as if I had been on a breezy sandbars of the Sahara. Okay, so you can see the quality of writing. It is a synthetic literature. It is computer generated paragraph. The title here, the mecha has a voice heard today. This mecha is a character, kind of a robot in a movie called AI, Artificial Intelligence, directed by Steven Spielberg. You can get this by you can go to this particular URL, talktotransformer.com. Let me see if I can get it. Yes, I can get. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Say I can. I'll just enter some text here. Okay, so this is the text I enter, and then I'll ask it to complete the text. Okay, it wants me to identify.
ನಂಬರ್ ಹೇಳತ್ತಾಗದ
I request all the participants to be on mute, please.
The network is slow, I think. Otherwise, we'll get it immediately.
Hello?
Okay, I'll just try another. So I think you're with me. What we can do there is we can just give a phrase, and then it'll try to predict that. Yeah. Okay. So you're generating that. Can you see that? Okay. Let me try using the AI tools on the internet. Probably I would have said, yeah, download and try it yourself. I wouldn't have said that. I would have definitely said that. You can download the program from here. It just gives a URL. Then it says, then you can run the program, try a few examples I'm describing, make sure that you have an image of 4x4 matrix, something like that. It doesn't look very technical. It looks like as if, a human operator is behind this and then writing this code. It is generated by a computer. It is generated by an AI automatically. So what is interesting is it is not limited to a particular topic. It can give any other topic. So it changed completely. It changed, from a technical sounding thing to a business kind of inference. So this is what is happening today. So that is a web service. That's what we are using. We are using a web service to get some kind of a literary text from a data center or some kind of web service. So that is a product of what is called generative predictive transformers. Transformers is the key technology developed by Google for language interpretation, understanding of language and things like that. And generative, the system is generative in the sense that it generates or it synthesizes speech. And it is also predictive in the sense it is using the historical inputs, whatever we have given, use that and its knowledge base to predict what a person would have actually written. And you can always make different, you can get it predicted again and again. And what is important is it is language transparent. You can get that. You can probably write it in English and then get it output in Kannada or Marathi or something like that. So what are the applications of these? Obviously, you can think there are so many different applications we can use this kind of a web service. You can see, it is easy to convert that generated text into voice by using some kind of a chatbot. You could input to a chatbot or a voice synthesis system and then get that translated automatically. So if you have, for example, you have a video, and in the video there is somebody is talking, like in this particular presentation, I am talking, and my talk can be given input to that system, generative predictive transformers GPT-2, and it will capture that, convert that, and add that title. Add in the title you can add the subtitles to the video itself. So you can automate that, and otherwise it would take a very it is a tedious task. So what does GPT-2 configuration? How does it look like? It's a 12-layer feed-forward network with a local backpropagation network, with again input processing, output processing, and things like that. The lowest level, the entry level system has 117 million weights being optimized. 117 million weights. Okay, so that is the entry level. Okay, now what we are using is that entry level. It can go, there are other systems available, the 12, 24 layers, 32 layers, 48 layers with up to 1540 million parameters. That is 1.5 billion parameters. Okay, most of it is using reinforcement learning, and this project can also be cloned from GitHub. You won't get the actual code, but you can get to use that. Okay, similar kind of a thing for video frame prediction is done by Prednet, which is a Facebook. So you can hook onto the Prednet and then put your camera feed to that. So how do I give the camera feed? That's a that is the service. Then how we need to take that camera. We need some kind of a hardware that will do that interface. Okay. Neural networks are kind of a we'll just see what are the conditions for, what are the requirements for web service. We need the fast response. We should because neural networks are very compute intensive, but fortunately they are also very modular, which means these modules can be distributed over a network, not necessarily single data center, but they can be spatially, they can be geographically scattered, and the interface that we develop, the interface that we access, through which we access the web service, may be able to identify what are the best suited server for a particular type of service that we require, and hook onto that particular server and integrate that all that information into a single server, and then return it back to, and the whole thing will happen in real time. It has to happen in real time. Okay. So with all this, AGI is still a mirage. Still, we cannot really get anywhere near AGI, but specific intelligence can be built and used. This can be commercially used. Some of these services are available from very well established companies like Amazon, and also Microsoft Azure has got uses some standard. Most of the time we use what is interface called a REST API, and you have interface for CLI. There is a standard like XML kind of a interface, CLI .NET. You can write in C# .NET or VB.NET or something like that. You can write in Java. You can write in PHP, Ruby. You can train your own net. Okay. You can just say, okay, this is the kind of, this we have already used. In one of our projects we used in our biomedical implementations, we use this. Now we need to, understand here that AI is going to disrupt the whole level of social fabric. It is a disruptive technology and going to bring a lot of change. It is also possible that AI can be used for malicious goals. It's not always that good things happen, bad things also happen. So leaving AI in a few hands is very dangerous, and that is why there is a need to regulate that. How do we regulate? How do we regulate this? And so there is a need for kind of a standardization. Now, whether anybody will stick to that standardization, or people will not stick to the standardization. See, what happens is once it is standardized, everybody has an access to that particular interface, or somebody develops. Somebody gives a specification like, okay, this is the performance guarantee that is the web service has to give. This is the interface it has to give, and so everybody has that. So what happens is the developments will be forced by the group of people, not just by one person. It is possible that one particular group of people will be working using that particular AI, working towards a malicious goal, but then the collective intelligence will be much more powerful than an individual or a small group. Or a small pool of developers. Exceptions exist, but in general, I think if everybody is aware of it, everybody is aware of a technology, the technology can be faster. So that is the reason why we want it to be open-ended. So service standardization requires that AI be available as a library of tools, pre-trained models be available, and we don't have to break our head on training again and again. Training is an extremely expensive proposal in AI. It is like schooling a kid. We generally go through 15 to 20 years of training in the college, from kindergarten to college or to PhD. And that is the kind of a thing that is required here also. It is artificial neural network, and we are not general. It is not an AGI. It is an AI. It is a specific, domain-specific tool. So, okay, it is still very laborious, and so it is better we have pre-trained models instead of going for training ourselves. So once that is there, now can we say, okay, these are the pre-trained models and these are available with these particular interfaces, and there are certain, you can develop an adapter for that particular trained model, and that pre-trained model is shared across the globe. Everybody is having access to that particular model. Yeah, it is possible, but somebody need to commit to that. Okay, somebody, there is, there are issues with standardization, like. Why do we need standardization? Another reason is, okay, I want, as a user, I want to move between different service providers. Today, I may be working with somebody, but not happy with the service that is being provided. I say today I'm working with Airtel, or today I'm working with Jio. I want to go back to somebody else like BSNL or Idea or someone like that. It depends, or it may be other way. So there are other things like also, if we have pre-trained models and they are guaranteed, the standard guarantees that, okay, the implementation that is available on a particular server is exactly the same trained model, or at least as capable as that, then it should be good. Then there's the consumer issues there, like people are worried about their security. What happens to the data security? What happens to the cost of development? How much money I have to spend if I go to another service provider? Will it be cheaper or will it not be cheap? How many years it is going to take to get the return on investment, the quality of service that is available, and issues like that. Also the scale of integration. We need to know how big a network can be. What are the structures that are needed to access a particular kind of intelligence level? The case is basically the same thing between Facebook and Tesla. Facebook says, yeah, AGI cannot be achieved because they are still with the Theano, TensorFlow kind of a structure, whereas Tesla says, no, we are way away. We are 100 times more faster than that. And is it true? Can it be true? Just let's have a look at these possibilities. So the scale of intelligence is very, very critical in making the web service available. We can make it available at different levels of intelligence, but if we have to, the technology will automatically shift towards what is called artificial general intelligence, AGI. In support of that, we need what is reconfigurable hardware. Reconfigurable hardware, I'll just break, I'll change the topic and then merge with this web service a little later. Automatically you'll see what is the connection between reconfigurable hardware and web service. Soft switches have been available in the microprocessors and microcontrollers for a long time. You can control the peripheral configuration for PIC microprocessor, or you can shift between ARM and Thumb, or Thumb 16 or Thumb 8, or you can also run a Java interpreter on the ARM processors using a Gazelle and things like that. Software defined, a certain amount of software definition has been available. But now what we are talking about, a few years back we were also talking about software defined infrastructure, where we are talking about how much bandwidth can be allocated and how many CPUs or how many instances should be allocated to a particular task, and how much disk space should be used and how it should be distributed across the globe and things like that. Okay, but the new configuration is not like, new definition is not like the software defined infrastructure required for AI is about reconfigurable GPU and CPU. We have millions of nodes that are to be integrated, and unless we standardize that, unless it is software controlled, we cannot have AI functional. Okay, so is it that, the AI can be implemented only at the web service, as a web service? Is it not possible that it be available at the edge, at your computing? It is possible. It is possible at the edge in two ways. One is, these pre-trained models can be compacted and be loaded on the AI chips that are available today, or they can provide hook-on. They can be connected to the network, gigabit kind of a transfer rate, the normal transfer rates. It is possible to get hooked onto web service and the microcontrollers or microprocessors or the chips that are on the edge can talk to the backend data centers and get the required response. So AI, we are looking at AI from both the ends. We are not looking at only at the cloud as the data center side. We are also looking at the edge side. So pre-trained models are also available for both cloud and the edge. It's not necessary that because they are large, they should be available only in the data centers. No, I'll show you some examples. Okay. most of the development in AI has happened because of this one particular company called NVIDIA. Everybody knows about. I think most of us know about it. And that company is now entering slowly from the NVIDIA was a graphics company actually. They started sometime in 95, 93, 94, 95, that kind of a time frame. So they have been here for about 20, 25 years now. And they were the ones who started publicly giving access to the GPU compute cores and say you can write your ANN to run on the graphics processing units. Okay, so they are coming with what is called a streaming multiprocessor designs. Streaming multiprocessor designs, which allow instructions to be given to reconfigure the microprocessor design. Okay, capabilities of these GPUs are, you can gauge that what it is able to do. The CEO of NVIDIA by name Jensen Huang, in a recent press release, which just happened a couple of weeks back, he said we can have a simulated multiverses next 5 years, which means okay, you can have a metrics movie like a scenario in the next 5 years. So doesn't that just hold on a second, please. Okay, so recently, just this chip was announced very recently, just a few weeks ago, and they call this is a CPU for the age of elastic computing, reconfigurable computing. A new word for reconfigurable computing is elastic computing. You can stretch, you can compress, you can reconfigure, you can add modules, you can add different modules to that, and that's what basically is happening. This one particular CPU, one processor, A100, there are again different versions of that, at least 2 versions of that. I am just taking a generalized version, A100, which has 54 billion transistors on that chip, and the die size is about 1 inch, 1 square inch. It is a big die, and it offers, if you talk to anybody who is in web services business or who is in AI, they will talk about a processor called NVIDIA Tesla V100. V100 is kind of a, it has become a standard. It has become a standard in AI. But what A100 is now giving is about 10 times, 6 times, 7 times faster than V100. It is possible that it has got several GPUs in that, lots of GPU hardware in that, and you can take multi-instance GPUs. That they call it MIG, multiple instance GPUs, on a single processor. In one processor, you could run up to 7 virtual processors. See, one of the technologies that is necessary for a good service provider is virtualization. Unless we can virtualize, it is not going to be cost effective. So here you can assume that there are 7 AI applications running on a single processor, and each one is requiring a large number of nodes, and all of them are given enough GPU power, on a single chip. Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to some more details little later. Now, all the GPUs are connected by NVLink. There's NVIDIA Link. This connecting different GPUs, and there's a crossbar switch. And the data transfer rate that you are getting, it is 50 gigabits per second. It is about 2 times faster than what V100 can achieve. 50 gigabits per second transfer rate on NVLink is about 2 times faster than what can be achieved on V100. This is the other standard. Okay, and it is also possible that isolated paths can be established in memory, which will completely isolate the transactions that are happening, all the GPU computation, AI computation that is happening in the memory, and they will not cross each other's boundary. So it means there is a safe, if a module is crashing, it will crash without crashing the CPU. So there is a kind of a and okay, let's have a look at different. I think I may be running out of time, so let me just run through this. The math capabilities are it can have sparse matrix operations that allow 7 times the GPU. Sparse matrix operations. We don't. What happens in neural networks is a lot of that weight. Lots of weight can be quantized below zero and then can be removed. So if you remove that, if you do that, most of the operations will have lots of operations in a matrix. In a matrix will have a zero, and then there is no need to compute that. So NVIDIA understood this problem and then implemented the sparse matrix operations as a part of the instruction set, as a part of the hardware set. Okay, so they have provided low-level support for deep learning and high-performance computing. They have also defined a new floating point and integer arithmetic which can be shared. The hardware is able to, like FP floating point 32 can work as a big float 16, or it can also work as a int 4 or int 8 or a bin. These structures are required for inferencing at the end. Okay, but most of the calculations can be done with the B float 16 or sometimes the FP32 operations. So this is about 2.5 to 5 times faster than what is possible with V100. Similarly, these int operations and bit operations, there are binary operations, there are bit operations, they are done using the same hardware. So we can partition, we can reconfigure that partition, we can reconfigure that arithmetic hardware to process the data in a particular way. Okay, we are not going to have a separate hardware, integer arithmetic processor or a floating point processor. No, it is the same one processor, one set of processors. Basically, there are. I'll tell you how many numbers are there. There is a huge, mind-boggling numbers are there. Just have a look at that. One CPU, one processor, A100 processor will have 7 GPU cores, and there are 7 tensor cores per GPU core. So there are 49 sensor cores in one chip. Okay, and there are 2 streaming multiprocessors per CPU or tensor processing core. Okay, so there are 7 processing cores, GPU graphic processing cores, and there are 7 tensor cores per graphics processor, and for a tensor processor there are 2 streaming multiprocessors, and there are this SM stands for streaming multiprocessor. You look at this. Each streaming multiprocessor consists of 8 FP64, that is the standard IEEE format, and 16 FP32 and 16 int32 as a hardware. Okay, now this can be reconfigured into int 8, int 4, big float 16 or things like that. Okay, and also has 8 load store units there. And it also has one tensor processor unit. Each of these streaming multiprocessor has 64 kilobytes of 64K into 32-bit register file. There is 64 kilobytes of registers. Okay, so this you can see is a compute in memory. There is so much of memory available that you can call it as not as a CPU memory architecture, but it is a new architecture which is generally referred to as compute in memory architecture. The computer is there in the memory, embedded in the memory, and even the data transfer rates and how that parallelization happens. Each parallelization is called a warp. Okay, so each warp basically does a SIMD transaction, 32 threads per clock. Okay, 32 instructions can be read and dispatched. FP32 module can handle SP32 floating TensorFlow, TensorFloat 32, big float 16 or floating point 16 format. So they can be reconfigured. They can be reconfigured to operate in a particular way depending on what is required there. And very interestingly, there is a thing here. Tensor floating point 32 uses only 29 bits. It is not 32 bits, but it is called 32 bit, but actually internally it uses only 29 bits. It has a speed of 16 bit, but width, the precision of range of 32 bit. And 128 FP64, floating point 64 operations per clock per streaming multiprocessor. Okay, so that is the kind of performance we are talking about. We are not talking about something normal. Okay, this is mind-boggling and huge. Okay, so let's look at the sparse matrix score. This is it allows 2 to 4 sparse matrix. Means there are 4 matrix positions, but 2 of them can be 0, and it can accommodate that. And so there is a specific switching circuit that is available there, and it will use that 2 to 4 sparse matrix score. Okay. It can also have a 16 by 16 bit multiplication in 28 clocks. Okay, 16 multiplications of 16 bit wide in 28 clocks only. See, this is an astounding speed. Okay, so a lot of optimization has happened. A lot of even the memory is very large, 40 GB at 1.2 gigahertz. And the transfer rate, memory transfer rate is about 1055 gigabits per second. Okay, so these are very huge numbers. Okay, so there are other hardware, lot of other hardware here. There is a specialized optical flow and stereo disparity accelerators, which will differentiate the changes in the video frames. There are again, this is only one part. There are many computers which are several times this. Like thousands and thousands of such units are kept in these supercomputers. One is the topmost today is called the Summit, and it is available in Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Tennessee, USA. And the other one, this is not the second one, but this is third, fourth, something like that. It is available in Wuxi, China. There is a very interesting chip called NVIDIA Nano. I think you all should experiment with it. I think we are getting a kit. I'm getting a kit. Ordered a kit and will be available very soon. Probably all of you should be shifting over to this experiment with robotic chip. It is having double 2-channel video. 2-channel video that again can be divided to 16 to 2-channel video, and it has audio execution on chip. 4 gigabytes on chip, 64-bit, 4 GB 64-bit low power DDR4 RAM on the chip. It is not a chip actually; it is a module, okay. And it can process 4K 30 frames of 4K video on 2 channels. There is a higher end of this. There is a slightly higher end of this called NVIDIA Javier or Xavier. Okay, these now we will have to throw away all our ARM processors and the PIC processors and things like that, and then start working on NVIDIA Nano and NVIDIA Xavier. Okay. So there is a lot of, you can see there is a lot of business opportunity here. Like, we need to do standardization to help volumes. There is a lot of work to be done in data cleaning, data capture, data sequencing. When we teach the kids, we do not teach A, Z, B, C, N, 25, 30, like that. We say A, B, C, D, up to Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to Z. Same thing here with the AI also, that we need to take the data and then sequence the data for efficient learning. So that's a great work to be done. So somebody has to take that job. So there will be a lot of industries that will be coming up. Like, transcription, medical transcription was a big industry at some point of time. Now, data cleaning and data sequencing can be a big industry in the next coming few years. Integration of AI into existing applications. A lot of existing applications are already there. So everybody wants to integrate AI into that. We saw in the on Times of India titles only, headings only. Then training and testing of ANN with a user data set is also another possibility. So there are lots of new businesses. It is not that when AI comes and we will all lose jobs and there will be nothing to do. No, it's not like that. It is like people used to get scared of computers. If the computers are introduced in the office, then we'll all lose jobs because the computer will do the job. No, it's not like that. The same thing applies to AI also. That as much jobs are lost, a similar number of jobs will be created. Only thing, there will be a shift in the way people will have to accept that. Okay, so COVID-19, I'm concluding this. COVID-19 is pushing the AI. Everything else is pushing the AI. New generation, all our kids, all our students will be AI inclusive. They will know AI by heart. They will be growing with AI, and probably certain amount of standardization we'll see over a period of time, and there will be a new kind of a job requirement. We have to be. There was a time when people used to say, "Yeah, you have to be computer literate." It's not enough if you are computer literate. You need to be AI literate now. Okay, thank you very much for patient hearing. I think I overshot by quite considerable amount of time. Thank you very much. Any questions, please? I am open.
Thank you, sir. If anybody is having any doubts or questions, the session is open for the discussions and questions.
Please raise your hand.
Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
This is Sridhar Iyer.
Yeah, sir.
So your talk was very interesting as usual. Now I'm currently working on machine learning for networks, basically the optical networks. So the main issue that we face if I want to bring in AI or ML into networks is that we don't have enough data. So I mean that if I want to train it, train the network, I need lots of data. So in your opinion, is this data, giving the data, I view it as it has become a business. So what's your view on?
We can. You know what? We had a similar, Dr. Iyer. We had a similar situation with one of our PhD students, and we have generated. We have generated the data. If you want certain assistance, I can help you in that. I can tell you how the data can be generated, and we can also buy. Of course, we can buy the data from other people. But I don't know if you want to do that because it is very expensive and it is cheap. One of our students is also working with Qualcomm, and they are doing a lot of data capture, doing a lot of data cleaning and things like that. They made some few papers also on that. Yeah. Am I with you? Are you? Did I say?
Yeah, I mean, because I can do the networking part and the AI part, but when it comes to training and prediction, of course, we need the data and, as you say, it's very difficult.
It is easy, Dr. Iyer. I don't think there will be no technical issues there, but probably the issues will be of time.
Yes.
Somebody has to sit and then train and things like that. Somebody has to actually look at the data, understand the data, clean the data, and that is obviously that will definitely take a lot of time. I'm not sure it can be handled very easily. I don't think you don't have to worry about that. Many are there in my team which probably can help you out in that.
Surely. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Sandeep is here. I think Sandeep collected a lot of data like that. Sandeep, yeah, okay. I'm yeah. Hello, Sandeep.
Sandeep Pidwai, sir.
Sandeep, you can talk, please.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm here. Are you getting my voice?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can tell few words about how you captured the data and clean the data.
With the help of our 3 gigahertz spectrum analyzer, we have started capturing the data from the rural as well as urban areas, from Belgaum city, from Pune city, from Sangli city, and one of the rural area is Ashta. So from that area, we have captured the GSM 900 band signals, and we have recorded with the help of a Visual Basic program. With the help of that data, we have cleaned that data with the help of an Python program, and we get a clear data set, and we have implemented it for various deep learning models like LSTM, autoencoders, MLP, and convolutional neural networks. So there is a quite it is not so much difficult to get the data, trace data, but we need to have some specific antenna system in place, and a sensor like spectrum analyzer, or you can have a vector analyzer also.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Sandeep.
Hello.
Okay, thank you, Sandeep.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Dr. Iyer, you want to say something?
Yeah. So this data which you have collected, Sandeep sir, is it like available to everybody, or
Yeah, it is shared on the net. It is shared on
Okay.
GitHub.
Okay.
I can
GitHub,
give you
sir.
access to that.
So
I
if
can
you
give
want,
the link.
we can share the link also. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Surely. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, please?
Tanuja?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Tanuja.
Yes, sir.
I want to say something.
Sir, it
Tanuja
was
is
very
an old student of
interesting,
ours, and she is in the industry. She is a lot of hardcore programmer. Electronic side, not the computer side, but she's a computer science graduate, but she does a lot of electronic programming, real time programming, engine control modules and things like that. I don't know. Yeah, you can tell me. Yeah, Tanuja, just few words.
Yeah, sir. It was very interesting, sir. Actually, I am not aware of much of AI things, but I really want to continue with the study now. You always do this, sir. You always
Come back,
push
come back,
students to
come back.
working.
Thank you, thank you.
Hello.
Anyone?
Sir,
Yes,
I
please.
am Balwant Gorad. I am Balwant Gorad. I am from D.Y. Patil University in Navi Mumbai.
Yes, Balwant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my question is related to deep learning.
Yeah.
I am working on an image classification model using convolutional neural network, and I want to increase the performance of this model. So I want to get to know how hyperparameter tuning can be done, so that the model performance can be increased.
It depends on the case. Actually, we have to just see. I mean, generally, what happens is increase the size of the network, and then you can your performance will increase. That is one way. Other one is basically systematically training the network will also help improve the performance. Instead of random inputs, we can also do systematic supervised learning initially, and then you can probably, if you are using reinforcement learning, you can use the reinforcement learning later. How is the training being done? It is a static one-time learning training and using it, or is it reinforcement? Or
Take one-time training.
training? Yeah, okay. That I think, you have to probably rearrange, sequence that data properly. What are the size of the data? How many images do you have?
I am having 41,336 images.
41,000. That's a huge number, actually. That's a huge number. So, what are the kind of accuracy you are getting?
Accuracy I am getting right now only 70%. 71.
17 or 70?
71.
That's okay. I think that's not bad. It's not bad. But maybe, yeah, you can improve the network configuration. I think you can try with a slightly different, larger. If you have that kind of a image set, the number of parameters have to be very large. The number of weights you have to optimize is going to be very large, and so you probably have to use a larger network. You probably your the size of the matrix that you the kernel that you are using and the stride and things like that, they need to be rearranged. Yeah, you can discuss that with me later, sometime later. I think definitely you can. We'll see the data and then see. Actually, I would also suggest you use online services like either Azure or AWS. They have very large network. So you are using a particular data set, is it? Well-known data set?
No, actually, I collected the data set from farm,
Oh.
and then I done the
fantastic.
image augmentation.
Okay. Augmented images.
Using the augmentation, I increase the data.
Yeah, very interesting. Interesting. Let us we'll discuss this at offline. I think can probably
Sure,
talk
sir.
to
Yeah.
some. Yes, sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, before we take the next question, there is one small announcement for the participants. The feedback link is provided in the chat box. So you can just fill that link, click on the link and fill the feedback. So you will be getting the certificates only when you fill that feedback form. So please make sure you fill the feedback form and get the certificate. Thank you.
Aparanji madam, anything?
No, sir, nothing.
Your nano board is coming.
Did you get it,
Hello?
sir? Hello? Sir, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear.
Sir? Did you get the board, sir?
No, I have not got. I have not got. I think it'll take some time. I don't know when. I think because of this all this COVID problem, I think I have not got the board.
Okay, sir, fine.
I'll update you when I get it.
Okay, sir, fine. Fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I think Shilpa can close the meeting.
Yes, sir. I request Dr. Sunil Harkananavar, sir, to propose vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to everyone present over here. Seeking the blessings of Dr. Siddharam Swamiji and Dr. Allama Prabhu Swamiji, I, Dr. Sunil Harkananavar, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, SG Balaji Institute of Technology, Belagavi, would like to propose vote of thanks. It is a great honor and privilege to extend the words of gratitude on this occasion. If there is a gratitude in our heart, then there will be a tremendous witness for us. Let me first of all thanks to Almighty, the Creator, from the bottom of my heart for making today's occasion a most successful event. For this, we are so beatified and thankful to God. I extend a very heartfelt vote of thanks to distinguished personality, our today's resource person, Dr. Uday Wali sir, for addressing the event such a grace. Thank you, sir, for your prized time and worthwhile words towards recent trends in neural computing as web service. We extend a sincere thanks to our respected principal, sir, Dr. Siddharama VT, for stimulating the wishes and aspirations for conduction of this event. We appreciate your compassion and commitment to your profession. Sir, we are honored to have you with us always. We feel immeasurable gratification in thanking our beloved HOD Madam, Dr. Jayashree M. Rudgi, for supporting to us. She is so enthusiastic, energetic, and always actively takes interest in caring and supporting the department for conduction of such events. We are thankful to Professor Shilpa Mahanavar for coordinating the event. We are very thankful to all the respected teachers and non-teaching staffs for their enormous cooperation for conducting the event. Finally, I thank everyone for putting effort from planning to success of this program. Thanks everyone for your presence and making this event one. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Professor Punigin. Sir.
Punigin sir. So tomorrow we have a Punigin sir session on
Very
how
nice.
to make a video classes, sir.
Okay, good.
So yesterday he had asked us give Wali sir's link and all like. So we had shared to him also. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you
Very nice, sir. You have joined it.
Very good.
So you were there
I'm
from the
happy.
beginning.
Sir, did you hear the? Yes, sir.
Thank you. It was very good. I am proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you all the participants. And thank you, sir. Thank you, Punigin sir, for attending the session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.